So nowadays we have lots of yoga schools, if we may call them schools, lots of yoga expressions, not only the classical ones, dhyan, karma, gyan, bhakti, but nowadays we have beer yoga, ganja yoga, and such extreme sampradayas, if you will. But also we may speak in terms of a particular type of yoga that is introduced in the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, first chapter of the Gita, called Vishada Yoga, or the yoga of desperation, or we may also call it the crying yoga. So this concept of crying in the context of yoga, of linking, is a very interesting particular one, because crying is such an element that accompanies us in life. Basically, we come to this world crying. First thing we do to confirm our existence is to throw some crying to the ether. And ideally, we should live our life crying in a particular way and live in this plane crying in a particular way. So we could call this world the Srishti Leela's crying world, if you will. One of the theme parks of Bhagavan when he comes to exercise particular types of Leelas. So the crying is something that we should learn how to deal with that in a healthy way. Sometimes crying is not a situation that makes us comfortable. For example, if we are with some children and they start to cry, after a moment we don't like that so much, because in one sense their crying is reflecting our crying, our inner suffering that we do not want to officially acknowledge, and they are somehow or other overtly exposing that in front of ourselves. And what we call sometimes material pleasure in this world, or so-called happiness, has mainly to do with trying to do away with this crying, with those tears, with that suffering, in the name of being happy and running after some pleasure that actually is a form of distraction and not real happiness, not real pleasure. So again, beginning of Bhagavad Gita is Visada Yoga. We call it the yoga of crying. The beginning of inquiry, in many cases, is crying, suffering. A type of crying. There are levels of tears. So we should know what to do with each type of tear at every level of our existence. So in the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna starts crying, as you know, lamenting. And Krishna tries to support him by saying, Masuchaha. That's the beginning of the Gita, and that's the end of the Gita. And 2 times he's saying, don't worry, be happy, basically. Or do not lament for those things that you don't need to lament. In other words, there's a type of proper lamentation, if you will. There's a type of legal crying. But in the beginning of our lives, many times we are crying only from an immature point of view, unnecessary type of crying. So we could say that part of life is to learn how to cry in the proper direction. And as sadhakas, as practitioners, spiritual practitioners, we could say that our practice, our prayer, our singing, our chanting is a type of crying, basically. We are trying to express a particular type of longing, a particular type of necessity, a particular type of healthy repentance, if you will. Jesus Christ will say we should be, before God, we should be like children. And as I said, children come in this world, babies crying. So we should show ourselves in a fragile way, in a vulnerable way. Vulnerability has its empowered side if properly expressed. So Mahaprabhu himself, let's take for example the Sikshastakam of Mahaprabhu. In the second verse he says, Durdaivam nidrishamiha jadina anurag. I'm lamenting because I have an artha samdas, I don't have proper attachment to Sri Harinam. So I'm crying because of that. That's a type of crying. All along the different verses we reach, for example, 7th verse, Chakshusapa recitam, I'm crying like torrents of rain in separation of Govinda. And in this way, in every single verse of Sikshastakam, we could say we find a type of faith, or we find a type of crying, a type of tears that are accompanying each successive stage in bhakti. So our chanting, the main angle of bhakti is kirtan, and this kirtan is, as Prabhupada will say, is like the genuine cry of the child, by not seeing, losing sight of his father, losing sight of his source. And we should conduct our kirtan in such a way. It's a crying school, a crying kirtan. If you just are able to express one single drop by chanting, even in solitude, that's much more powerful than the loudest of kirtans with tons of mridangas and kartals and jayas. If you're in your single room, honestly, sincerely chanting, praying for mercy, that single tear will won't go unnoticed by Bhagavan. And we need, of course, of guidance and assistance for this crying. Sri Guru will teach us how to cry from a bona fide side. That's what bhajan is about, that's what kirtan is about, that's what spiritual life is about. And I close with this. Once someone asked Bamsidas Babaji, this famous Avadut, a very nice question, basically a simple question, how to conduct our practice in such a way, how to conceive our avideya with proper sambandha so we may achieve proper goal, prayojan. And as a response, as a reply, he gave, let's say, the shortest lecture in the whole history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, only one word class. He said, cry. No? That was the end of his exposition, and some substance of all our whole practice is there in this yoga of crying. See you next fortnight.